We'll start with a prayer, okay?
Okay, sure.
Could I offer that?
Yeah.
Sure. Our Father in heaven, how grateful we are for the many blessings that Thou hast given us. We're grateful for this earth and the experiences that we have. We're grateful for our families, for the love that we share. We're grateful particularly for Thy Son and for His atoning sacrifice that has made everything possible for us. Father, we pray at this time that Thy Spirit would be with us. I'm grateful for the Young family and pray that Thy richest blessings would be poured out on them. And we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 All right. Well, I know you've had several conversations with and also and I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to you as well, just to become acquainted with you. I know who you are. I know you've got children. I don't know you real well because we've never had the opportunity to sit down and talk. So maybe you can just kind of tell me how your family's doing. Maybe to start off with, that'd be okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine. We are doing great now. It has been a really difficult, painful, extraordinary year. And we feel better than we've ever felt at this point. We feel whole and grounded and happy and connected, and we have a great spirit in our home. Our marriage has never been better. We feel purposeful in living our core values as a family, which is one of the first things that we did when we were going through this, is we decided what are the core values that are never going to change. And at the top of that list is honesty, kindness, love, humility, love of learning, service to family. So we have a list of 13 core values that we have decided to live as a family that, come what may, will never change. And so at this point, we're feeling really joyful and really, we're feeling really whole and really good. And you can add anything you want to that.
Yeah, no, I think we're, every day working to strengthen our relationship with each other and with the kids. And when we went through the initial weeks and months of this faith journey, it was really hard and very scary for us as parents and individually and as a couple, but especially as parents. And but we've come through much of that and have come out on the other end feeling, like Leah said, great. Like I'm very happy. We're very happy. I feel like the kids are happy. I feel like we have beautiful conversations as a family that we never had before in certain ways. I can be more open and honest with Leah, likewise her with me. And there's more of an acceptance there, and we're getting along better. So I think we're doing really well.
So your faith, you talked about your faith journey. Tell me, what is that? So where are you right now in that?
Yeah, so I don't know how much, told you. We've been really open with him, and he's been very wonderful. And that's just something that we feel like, in everything we do, we try and check in with ourselves. Is this aligning with our core values? And sharing in honesty, but also love and respect about our journey just feels really important to us, because that follows the, showing love and concern for him in the position he's in, and also sharing honestly, what we're experiencing. Because that's one of the core, so many of our core values were just taught to us our whole lives in Mormonism. And there are things that we obviously feel strong about. And so, so we've been pretty open with, we've met with him a few times. And it all really just started because I had a friend who was really suffering. And she was just a wonderful person, a convert, someone of character and integrity. And she was very open and vulnerable with me. And I was thankful for that she felt safe to do that with me, because that can be very difficult to do, especially when you're going through this. And something that I've done my whole life is when someone's struggling, I know that in order to really help them, I need to understand them. And so I've done this with a variety of friends, like, oh, this happened to you. Oh, this book was meaningful to you. Let me read it so I can help understand you and love you in a meaningful way. So with my friend, the same thing. And that was the beginning of last December. She led me to several resources. She was just feeling so betrayed and in so much pain. And in an effort to help her, I needed to understand her. So I started learning a lot, every day, all day, incessant reading, learning, listening to podcasts, book after book, podcast after podcast, letter to my wife, the CS letter, things that you probably know of. And that is the beginning of the process that changed, how we see the church and what we believe and what we don't believe in anymore. And so...
So where are you right now with regards to the church?
Yeah.
What are your feelings?
We don't believe the church is what it claims to be, that it's the one and only true church. I don't believe that Russell M. Nelson is a prophet of God. I believe he's a good man trying to do the best that he can. I don't believe that any of them are prophets of God. I think that they're, again, good men trying to do the best they can. I believe that we're all trying to do that. I don't believe that the Book of Mormon was a literal historical book, a history of people who actually walked on this continent. I don't think there's any evidence to support that. And I love the church. I love the culture. I love the people. Phenomenal. He's a fantastic bishop and a great pastor. You know that.
Yeah, he's a good man.
And we love him. He's a friend. Just like we love people. We ran into a grocery store last night. And I have great love for him. We were talking about it on the drive here. Great man. And when he says to me, we miss you, like I feel that love. And I want to say back, I miss you too. And at the same time, I feel frustrated. I feel bothered. I feel angry that I have to have that conversation with him just because I no longer see the church in the same way that he sees the church.
That conversation, what do you mean by that conversation?
In the grocery store, where we exchanged pleasantries, we talked for 5 minutes, and at the end he said, we miss you. And he said it out of love. I have no ill feelings. I know why he said it. I would have said the same thing to somebody if I were in his shoes. Because he's just expressing love. But the fact is that I miss him too. I miss him. He's a great man and a good example. And I don't get to associate with him. And I realize that it's my choice, but the challenge that I feel in my heart is I feel like there is no space for me in the church. There is no space for me because I can't answer. I mean, I can answer. We could have a Temple Recommend interview right now, and other than the things I just shared with you about my testimony, I can pass a Temple Recommend interview because I haven't changed the way I live my life. I just haven't. I was very comfortable as a Mormon. I love being a Mormon. I was raised in the Mormon church. That's my language. It's my spiritual language. Talking about the Spirit and all this. That's me at the core. But there's no, like, if we're going to learn about the Book of Mormon every 4th year, how do I do that? I think the Book of Mormon has great lessons and teaches great truths, but I think it's a book of stories. I don't think it's a historical, literal record of actual Lamanites and Nephites. And so I've chosen not to associate with the church on Sundays. And so I don't get to see, and I don't get to see many of the people. And it's not their fault. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. That's the frustration. That's the angst that I feel, is that I've lost my tribe. We've lost our community. We have no family. Our family's all out west. Mm-hmm. So for the last 12, 13 years, our family has been the church. That's been our tribe. And then we reach a point where we learn that the church isn't what I thought it was for 40 years. And I understand and accept that you nor DJ agree with that, but realize that's my conclusion, that's my reality.
And it's your right.
And now I lose all of that. And it's not because trying to shun me. It's just, let's be real. Our relationship was based on the church. It's centered around the church. It's when that commonality is no longer there, we're not going to see each other. We're not going to associate in the same way. We're not going to feel comfortable speaking that same lingo, when it's different.
So what to do? How do we resolve this then, I guess, is the issue? Because I understand completely what you're saying. And, ideally you'd say, well, then those relationships, there's no reason why those relationships can't continue. You don't need to see them in church. There's no
I
reason
agree.
they can. But how does that get resolved? Or have you thought about that?
How would I like it to be resolved?
Yeah.
I would like the church to come clean on its truth claims and about its history and about the messiness therein, right? And it's beginning to, in small steps, in my opinion, with the gospel topics essays, it's beginning to shed some light on those things. It's still not widely known to the church membership, and that's purposeful. But your average everyday member of the church, which is who I was for 40 years, didn't know any of this stuff, really didn't know the surface of it. And yet when I say, well, wait a second, then it's like, sorry, there's no space here. There's no safe space to discuss these things. Like even the gospel topics essays, Joseph Smith's polygamy and polyandry. There's no safe space in the church to even talk about. If I bring it up, it wouldn't go well. If I raised my hand in Sunday school and said this, that, and the other about it, it wouldn't go well. I understand why. But so
before December or whatever, you obviously were. What was your testimony before that, and what was that based on?
Well, that's a layered question, right? Because we were born in the church, and there's a lot of programming, right? This is your tribe. This is what's acceptable, and this isn't unique to Mormonism. This is Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses. There's currently 4,300 faith traditions on the earth right now that are reported. So you can look at this. I think for me in sort of my discovery process, it wasn't just about, okay, there's two parts of this. So there's the information, but then there's understanding cognitive bias, right? There's understanding confirmation bias, cognitive dissonance. There's understanding all of these mental things like the BITE model, behavior information control. And so I had to dissect and understand these. And what I did is I did it looking at other religions, because when you're in the tribe, it is so painful to question deeply held beliefs that will completely alter every aspect of your life. It's so painful. So that sometimes when people see this information, it's hard for them they're seeing it from inside the tribe. And when everything around you is going to be threatened by this, when your relationship with the closest people in your world is threatened, right? It's very hard to look objectively. So I looked at Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, so that I could understand some of the programming, some of the methods. Because again, it's hard to see it when you're in the tribe. It's hard to see that it exists in the tribe. So I think my testimony was based in part, and I think most people's are, on some of that programming. This is what all of my aunts and uncles did. This was the right way. When we had said our children chose to be baptized. Well, did our 8-year-old children really have an acceptable alternative when this was their entire paradigm? Is it really fair to say to a child who is in ISIS, whose entire world is centered on this idea that you will go to heaven if you kill Americans, is it really fair to say, well, you had a choice, you had a decision? No. If that child was raised in that paradigm, they didn't have a decision. That was their entire outlook, right, on life. And you can say that about anyone in any different religion, especially in Orthodox religion. So, I really can't say to you that I had a testimony based on exclusively based on my own feelings. It has much more to do with that. But I would say I believe what I was taught. I believed that. That was my world. That was my safety. I grew up in Provo, Utah. It was the culture. It was everything. It was what my mom taught me. It was my whole world, you know? So, I mean, it's hard to say, what was your testimony based on? My culture, my family, my entire outlook. It answers religion, answers all the existential questions for people. You know, for us, it answers them within Mormonism. For Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, their paradigm's different. For these, you know, for Buddhists, their paradigm's different. But religion in general answers the existential questions that humanity wants answers to. It's comfortable. It feels good. We want those answers. And as a human, I found those answers here within my tribe. And Joseph Smith was a part of that paradigm, right? So Joseph Smith was a part of my testimony. The Book of Mormon was a part of my testimony. Modern day Revelation was a part of my testimony. Everything we're taught in the church was a part of my testimony. Eternal Families was a part of my testimony.
What you're saying is your testimony was built upon traditions or what things people had taught you, right?
Well, that's a part of it, yeah.
Versus knowing for yourself or having that confirmed, or
I would say I felt that was confirmed. You know, I had those feelings that was confirmed to me within my paradigm. The problem comes when you learn facts, right? You know, and there's a great spiritual witness YouTube video where you can see people of all different faiths just bearing incredibly powerful testimonies, right? I know that Allah is the one and only way. I know that Buddha, I know, right? That's not unique to Mormonism. Feelings and the way the brain and the heart work based on your environment and, you know, having that confirmation bias and all of that is not unique to Mormonism. And I believe that if I were born in China or in India or in, you know, any other different religion, I would have felt just as powerfully and been able to bear the same testimony in any other religious, you know, type of environment. You know, that of course you know. It's all you know. But then when you're faced with information that absolutely verifiably contradicts your feelings, you have to decide, are you going to move forward based on something that feels fuzzy inside because it's safe and warm and it gives you the answers that feel good to you? Or are you going to critically look at the information that is actually available in every kind of form that time and time and time and time and time again says to you, you may have had those feelings, right? But you were basing that on incomplete information. And I would say that now in my life, I feel the Spirit more, just as much, if not more. Because that warm, good, amazing feeling, whether I'm reading a book with my child or whether I'm in this paradigm reading the Book of Mormon or whether they're reading the Quran or whether they're, you know, bowing to Allah, that is not, it's not unique. It doesn't confirm Mormonism because now I don't believe in Mormonism and I still feel it. I feel it more. I feel it as I sit across from someone and they weep and they sob and they tell me how heartbroken they are. And just being there in that space is so holy and it's so spiritual and it's so connected. And I feel it as we are able to love so unconditionally and say, God did not put a stamp on you being wrong. You are not wrong because you were born that way. I feel it burning inside of me. So did I have those feelings in this paradigm? I did. But I can sort of see it differently now. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. Cody, what about you?
I think the best way to describe me would, you know, up until a year ago was I was all in, completely. I mean, I was doing everything I could, and I believed it with all my heart. I really did.
Based on
both culture, upbringing, and and personal experiences. So for me, my mission was transformative. In my youth, I wasn't very active in the church. My parents, we just kind of were lukewarm at times. And so some of those early metrics, in graduating seminary and stuff, I wasn't being real involved in Scouts. I didn't do those things. But I wanted to go on a mission. I did, and it was transformative in terms of my dedication to the church. And I came home a changed person.
And we were talking about this last night. He was the AP, and he literally on his mission, he ran. They didn't walk. They ran from house to house to preach the gospel. Yeah. If that, tells you about Cody.
So, and came home within a couple years, got married. We started having family, and it was all I wanted. It was, our girls were going to go on missions and go to BYU. We'd go to visit family in Utah. We'd take kids down to Provo. This is BYU. It's a phenomenal campus.
This is where you're going to go.
This is where you can go to school. We were, not that I am special in any way, but I was just all in, completely in. And I would have, last November, I would have told you I have a rock solid testimony. Not in a boastful way, really. I just understand. I'm not shaken.
I guess, so I'm trying to understand how you get from that point to where you are. And I know that you've talked about facts and other things like that have been presented to you. And I just wonder if there's been an equal emphasis on, verifying and holding fast to the things that you know to be true, or that you felt were true at that time, as opposed to, like Elder Holland says, he said, hold fast to that which is true, that you know to be true, and doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe I can give you an example.
Okay.
So I believe Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. I believed that the first vision happened. At that time, I didn't know. This may sound crazy to you. Maybe you knew. I had no idea about his polygamy. I knew that polygamy had occurred in the church. I had a very Pollyannish view of why it happened, and I never worried about the mechanisms or the details of it all happening. But then when you read the LDS, and I knew of these gospel topics essays. They've only been out for a couple of years. When you read the gospel topics essay, and then you go and you look at the footnotes and you study footnotes, that's a different Joseph Smith, in my opinion. Right? That's not, the man who marries 7 girls under 18 and 11 women married to other husbands, many of which were Mormon, who's being dishonest to his wife about his polygamous relationships.
Who's being dishonest to the church about his polygamous relationships.
So at that point, right, like Leah said, I'm confronted with information that conflicts. And you say, well, hold fast to the things that you know. And what I'm saying to you is that at that point, I have to question. I have to at least entertain. Is it possible that my knowledge is based on incomplete and even false information? Right? Because if that's the case, right, then I have to be, in my opinion, I have to be humble enough and even courageous enough to say, I need to reanalyze. I need to relook at what I think is the facts and what I think is the data that, how does it lay out? And so that is the process that took weeks to months, and with this sort of agonizing discovery. And I know that from those in the church looking at us doing this, they're probably saying, well, you're not giving enough weight to what you already know. And my counter with that would be, well, yeah, but for 40 years I learned it and lived it. I'm sorry, but it's
all we knew was the correlated.
I understand that, but the problem is, or if that's what you've known for 40 years, but it's not like, that's why we go to church every Sunday. That's why we're told to read the scriptures every day, because it continues to bring that spirit, continues to bring that kindling. And if that stops, and then there's a focus on one other side of it, one other aspect, then you can see how there would be a tendency for maybe that fire to dim a little bit and to go away. And what I would say is, as it relates to Joseph Smith, you said, I knew he was a prophet. But then I heard about these other facts. Well, did that change the fact that he's a prophet? Did that change the fact of what you knew before then? I mean, I don't have answers to why those things happened or exactly what the circumstances or any of that is.
Well, and see, I guess it's really challenging for, the conversation is challenging, right? Because, we had a stake president who, who we're in a support group with say, I've been on the other side. He was a stake president. He was a bishop. And, he would have these exact same conversations. And he said, at that time, I did not know the information. And so it puts you in a very difficult position. And it puts us in an interesting position because the truth is it's not Joseph Smith and his polygamy. It's not the fact that the Book of Mormon has anachronisms and DNA issues and yada, 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 and you can name 25 different major issues, and we have studied every single one. It's not the fact that there's racist teachings, homophobic teachings. It's not the fact that the witnesses lived lives that we had no idea that they lived and that they witnessed to other books. It's not the fact that there are currently things in place that are hurting people in ways we had no idea. It's not the fact that, the suicide rate in Utah and the opiate and it's not any one thing. It's that when we started down this path, we turned over, and all the information, most of what we learned started with church sources, right? Which led us, footnote by footnote, into other sources, which led us into the apologist arguments, which led us to hearing the stories of people like Tom Phillips, Hans Madsen, Quorum of the 70 members, right, who had their second anointings, who learned these things. They've written books. They have books and books. Grant Palmer, CES director for 34 years. That was a really good book. It was called The Mormon Origins, the history, Mormon Origins. These are not people who are out to get the church. This is not about that. These are people who risked everything, who have been who've lost marriages, who've lost their jobs, their pension, everything. These are employees of the church who loved the church so much, and they cared so much that when they found the truth, right, the information that they didn't know before, it's just devastating, right? And these people are then excommunicated, labeled apostate. Now you're anti-Mormon, and here's the badge. You're othered. You're not one of us. You're excommunicated. And as we learn about these people, we learn about their lives. We read their books. You realize, oh my gosh, these are not anti-Mormons. These people loved Mormonism. Hans Madsen just did an interview. He wrote a book called Truth Seeking in Switzerland. He was, I don't know if you know about the Swedish Rescue, but he was the Quorum of the 70 and how many years later? 30? When was the Swedish Rescue?
I don't know. It was
when all these saints in Switzerland were finding out about this. And there was just a big thing just recently where they went back to Switzerland. These were all interviewed, these people. And, Hans Madsen is literally just sobbing. He's weeping. Like, I lost everything. And that is the problem, is that you sit in an interview like this, right? And it's like, well, doubt your doubts, stay in the boat, And I get it. Like, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to, but there is so much suffering happening right now, and it is wrong. Like, I truly believe that if you were to understand the pain that people are going through, and maybe you do and I don't know it, even in the way we do, which is maybe not extensive, it would bring you so much heartache, because it's wrong. It is wrong. It is wrong that there are so many people who their families won't talk to them, who are labeled as apostate, deceived, anti, who can't share their voice, who can't be valid, who no longer can feel integritous in this space. And the church knows this. because we've heard the interviews that they've had with the Quorum of the 12. We've seen the letters that have been written. We know the changes that are being made because we know the people who are excommunicated who begged for those changes. That's what's happening in the temple. It is not Revelation. It is Kate Kelly. It is that movement. It is ordained women. It is those initiatives. And to me, that is so immoral. It's so wrong from where I'm sitting to see so many people hurting, and to say, wait a minute, this is not what he taught. He didn't teach that. He taught, see the person and break the rule. I'm going to heal on the Sabbath, And it was a little bit hard for us because we feel like in following our core values of love and seeing others, as you're aware, we've created this space where those people who are suffering can feel validated and seen and acceptable and okay and loved. And, they shared with us that, just so you know, this is kind of going around and now, you want to be safe, but now you're a threat. People see you as a threat. And I just think, and I said to him, okay. If following what Jesus Christ taught me to do and the church taught me to do, right? Mormonism taught me to be honest, to love unconditionally, to mourn with those that mourn. I covenanted to do that. And if that makes me a threat or an apostate or excommunicated or whatever it is, okay. But it's such a powerless feeling, it's such a powerless feeling to be with and him say oh, we're so sad for you. So many people, they feel so bad for us. We've been deceived. We've been, we don't go to church. We don't get the feeling of the Spirit, but we're basing our future now on information and on core values, but we cannot in integrity ignore the information and say it feels good to read the Book of Mormon. With the information I have, that doesn't work anymore. Even that statement doesn't, it's dismissive a bit. It dismisses, it says ignore the information and listen to your heart. And I did that my whole life because I didn't even know the information existed. It was intentionally withheld, right? Because once you see it, it paints a very different picture of the church. So it's I did that my whole life. So did the God who created me say to everyone within religion, anything out there that disproves, that gives factual information about your dogma, your way of believing, is intended to lead you astray or harm your tribe or your organization? I don't believe that the Creator believes that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then I'm looking at everyone else and I'm saying, you're wrong. My dogma is right. The way my tribe is right. And less than 1% of God's people on earth found Mormonism, and we're the one. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
So you talk
feel
about
right to
wanting.
me.
You talked about space within the church. Where. So how does that work? I mean, if obviously your beliefs are like they are, and do you even want to be in the church anymore? I mean, that's certainly what the sense that I get is in talking to you. Mm-hmm. If you feel that way, then what's the issue with wanting to be in the church? And here's the issue that I have, and I'm sure that they talk to you about this. And the fact of the matter is, creating this group, it's one thing for you to have your beliefs and to believe what you do, and I completely and totally respect that. That's your ability and your agency to be able to do that. My Protestant neighbor, my Catholic neighbor, my Muslim neighbor, if I do have one, they're free to believe whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you actually form a group
Mm-hmm.
that actually starts to pull people away or encourage them to come away, then that's where it starts to become a problem or a challenge for me.
Well, first off, almost every person in the group was a stranger to us before they found us. So, you can go through any of my social media. I've never once solicited someone to come join the fold. These groups are in every city in the U.S., in many outside of the U.S. We're in multiple groups. There was one here that just had kind of gone a little bit silent, but I had met with someone who had reached out to me, who was struggling, who was in pain, who had kids in the LGBT community, and I sat and had lunch with her, and then we went to a retreat, and we spent the weekend with 40 people who were going through this, and we saw that there's such a need for community because people are often silenced by their family, sometimes ignored. We have people who've been written letters like it would be better that you were never born to their son, or it would be better that your family drowned in the depths of the sea. And it's hard to imagine.
Those are hurtful things, and I'm sorry those things are said. Or that feeling, that's not good. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, what makes you think we're trying to pull, or what evidence is there that we're trying to pull people away from the church, or that we're even a threat to the church?
Are you, the fact that you're talking to people and sharing with them these other kinds of things and encourage, and the fact that you don't believe.
What does the church offer these people? And this is nothing against you, right? What does the church offer these people who have concluded that the church isn't what it believes it is? They're robbed of their community and their tribe, their culture. They're outcasted. They might be divorced because of it. What does the church offer to these people? The church doesn't offer anything. The church offers repent and return. And that's and friendship, right? The church would say, be their friend.
What would you suggest that they offer?
A safe space for people who want to participate in the community and the camaraderie and the friendship, but can't buy it, can't toe the line to the truth claims of the church. That's not something for you to do. That's something for the church to do. That's why I say, what do I want? I want their church to come clean, because it would say, hey, everybody, there's more messiness in this than we've said for 180 years, and
we've intentionally kept.
Well, we have to own that. We have to live up to it. We have to be honest. And what it means is people who struggle with this, they're not crazy. They're not deceived by the devil. They're just struggling with historical data. They're struggling with evidence, right? Because that's what's happening. Are there anti-Mormon lies? Yes. Has the church lied to cover things up? Yes. Okay, so let's be real. Like, there are extremes, but in the middle, where most people are living, where I feel like we're living actually, is we're trying to understand. And that's why it becomes for us it became such like a passion. Like as soon as I said, wait a second, could this possibly be? No way. I couldn't believe it. For like a month. She's like, Cody. And I was like, no. But when I finally came around and said,
look at the information.
Oh my gosh. Is it possible? Is it possible that I'm wrong? Like, it became an obsession. Like, no way. And I just like started devouring it because I couldn't believe it, right? But then I'm left with no space because the church is, Gordon B. Hinckley says either it's true and the greatest thing or it's a complete farce, right? He said that. He put forth that sudden death statement. That's true. Okay, so what? So if I can't believe, and I'm not about getting up at the pulpit and saying, hey, this church is a complete farce. That's not what I want to say, because I believe that this is a Christian church, wonderful people, salt of the earth people, trying to follow Christ, trying to make it back to heaven. And if they want to do that in the Mormon church, fantastic. Most of my family's trying to do that. And if that makes them happy, fantastic. I want to support them in that. right? My nephew gets baptized. I want to talk to him about it. How'd you feel? How'd it go? Great. Now, I may not agree that it is what he thinks it is, but that doesn't matter. The fact is that he and his family, this is the path they're choosing, right? And I can absolutely respect you and all of my friends doing the same thing in the church. But my path is now invalidated. My friends, they think I'm deceived. My siblings, my parents, they mourn for me. They pray for me. They put my name in the temple because I'm deceived.
So you talk about safe spaces in the church. Sounds like you don't have a safe space in your family.
Yeah, that's painful.
But here's the thing, across the board, there is destructive programming in the church because what is taught is we have the one true church, right? The fullness of the gospel. And it is true and is the one and only way to be back, right? And people literally believe. And this is what is taught. Cody's dad thinks he might not be with him forever. And that is so destructive because you are making people so scared. If their child is gay, if their child leaves the church, if their child, it's a little bit ironic because it's like, well, we teach that families can be together forever. Mm-hmm. If everyone follows the program, if you believe and stay in the boat no matter what, if you're not gay, if you're not, if you're not on the fringes of Mormonism, let's say. And so my whole life, we fit Mormonism so well. White, wealthy male, we were following the program and it worked really well for us. And I think through this, the other side that we're seeing and the other side that hurts us so much is that there is a lot of pain, right? And we feel horrible for the pain that we're now inflicting on our family because we feel like we have to be honest with ourselves. And that means we can no longer align ourselves with the church. And that means that Cody's dad is in mourning because he believes he might not be with his son forever. So the flip side of teaching that families can be together forever, but it's only through this one way, is that the person who comes into the church and none of their family's Mormon, right? Or the person who has the LGBTQ child, or the person whose children learns these things, and it's happening by the tens of thousands right now. People are leaving the church. We're in a group with now, it started out when I was in it, there was like 53,000. There's over 90,000 people going through this right now in one of the groups we're in. This is an epidemic. It's
Which
not.
We knew that it was going to happen.
Right, and in the church, it's because and maybe you're here and maybe you're not, is because they teach the elect will fall away, right? That's the teaching. And again, utterly dismissive.
There's a persecution complex, and it's existed from the days of the pioneers, and I think it plays into why you would ask us if we're trying to pull people away, as if we're trying to persecute the church. I have no desire to persecute the church. What we're doing is just trying to be friends. We're just trying. Somebody says, somebody says, hey, I've lost my tribe, lost my community. Okay, come over here. We'll be your friend. I'll listen to you. I actually understand. Right? It's like people want to have community. People want to be amongst people who understand them. That's why the church is so fantastic. The church does community better than any organization I've ever been a part of. Okay? The church has nailed community. And that's in part why it works so well for us. Now we don't have that. So we're having to create our own community. And we're befriending people who are in our position. Most of them are not looking to get back into the church. They're just trying to make a new life now, right? So, if they came to us tomorrow and said, hey, I want to go back to church, I'd be like, fantastic. Awesome. I'll be here. I support you. If that's what you want, that's great. I would never badmouth you for doing that. I would never try and dissuade you from that. That's your prerogative, right? We are the last thing, we are anything but a threat to our ward, to the stake. We are just, what we're doing is we're actually trying to live the covenants that we made to God, to mourn with those that mourn, comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and also to receive comfort, right? Like if you've been in the foxhole in Iraq with a group of men, You come home, I bet you understand each other in a way that nobody else understands.
Right.
And in a very tangible way, we've been through something that was traumatic and hard, and that very few people can really understand. You, and I wouldn't expect you to really be able to understand it. My dad can't understand it, right? But brother so-and-so, who's in the midst of it and throes of it right now, or who went through it 5 years ago, we can understand each other. We can be friends.
Without judgment.
Without judgment.
Without judgment. And, the truth of it is well, our experience is, no one says, why did you leave? They'll say, we're so sorry. We feel so sad for you. And it's very, I think there's a lot of fear. I think it's very fear-based. But I think it's also a bit, from where I'm sitting, it feels that when someone believes that they absolutely have it right? And we believed that, right? Then obviously there's no need for them to question, So I understand why they don't. Because why would they? They have all the truths. But what that creates is a culture that sort of stamps pity or dismissiveness or, deceived onto people. And, it's like, we'll love you. We'll bring you cookies. We'll pray for you. We'll hope you find your way back. That is not what these people need. That is not what they need. They need someone who says, I love you. If you want to talk to me, I'm here for you. And because of the persecution complex, because of this teaching of, the elect will be led astray, and the church is losing the best and the brightest, some of them, but it's like there's an answer for that. Like, it's Satan, if they're being deceived, So, like, there's an answer for everyone in their own mind. There was an answer for us when my sister left 10 years ago. It's like, she's been deceived. We're so sorry. We're going to pray for her. We're going to hope for her. We had to do some real apologizing and say, like, we are so sorry. You were so alone. But I thought that this question might come up. And so yesterday, I did get onto the support group. And I asked them if they could share why they feel like online support groups have been helpful for them. And why they feel like there is a need for those support groups when they find these things out. And what we did is we compiled all of their answers. And initially I thought, I'll read them to them because they're going to be so good. But I know that you are someone who's so loving. Like, you wouldn't be doing this if you weren't. You would not be sacrificing your time, your energy. You would not be sitting in these interviews. I know we're not the only ones. We can't be the only ones that have come to you like this. And this is the best way I know how. This is the best way we know how to love them and support them, and also to offer you their voices. For you to have the chance. You say, what can I do? I would say, read this. That's what you can do. Because I think a lot has to happen from the top down. I think a lot of it, I think it's unfortunate on both sides of this conversation for many reasons. Okay. But I do feel like this is something that you can do, is you can read, because they want to be heard. That post was put up last night at 10 o'clock p.m.? 9:30 p.m. And it was just,
Well, I think it gives a sense for why do these support groups exist? What value does it provide? And I think that, unless you have the chance to read their words, I think we don't really understand.
Okay, but no, I'll commit to you that I'll read those.
There's one or two that kept their name, but they're very fearful. They're very fearful, and so I put on the post, every single one will be made anonymous, because, and one person even says in there, this is why it has to be anonymous. This is why we're.
And so I'm a little bit puzzled by this, because on one hand, you don't believe what the church teaches.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you kind of want to stay there.
No, we want to stay rooted in our core values.
Which, that's fine, you can do that.
And this is one way for us to do that.
So you're asking, why don't we resign? Right?
Well, I guess the problem I have again is, it's, to me, to believe one thing and then to go out and preach something different.
We're not preaching anything.
But you are, in an essence, by your sharing this and saying we don't agree with that, and this is... So
Are you... No, wait, pause. Do you know what happens in these groups? We're not preaching. We're like, share your story. Oh, my mom said she would rather I be dead than be alive and have found out that the church, and have left the church. Oh my gosh, that is so hard. That must feel so difficult. How can we support you? I think I might get divorced and my wife won't talk to me. I feel so alone. Oh my gosh, can we Skype with you? How can we love you? How can we support you? That is what's happening in these groups. It's not, it's a support
I don't
group.
resign because of my family, right? It would break the heart of my parents if I resigned from the church, because it would be me officially and irrevocably severing that ceiling, right? And so I stay in. I have not resigned for that reason. And that's probably the only reason that I haven't resigned. But it's a huge reason for me because I have tender feelings for them, and I don't want to hurt them.
I can appreciate that.
I do not pretend to be a spokesperson for the LDS Church. I don't pretend to be a spokesperson for the anti-LDS Church, if such a thing existed, right? We just started a support community to help people and to find help, to find support and love, and to provide support and love. That's all it is.
Do you have earlier you said, if somebody said, I want to go back to church, you'd say that's great.
I would.
Any experiences where that has happened?
We have a lot of experiences within support groups of people feeling like, I have to do this because if not, I'm going to lose my marriage. Or...
there are people in the support groups who go every Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we don't bash them for it.
No.
I mean, there are people who go every Sunday to this stake, and to our ward, who have either highly nuanced views or don't believe at all.
Who, by the way, we didn't even know. Like what happens is it's word of mouth. It's like there's a couple safe people that these people know, and then they find out that there's a support group. I mean...
That's all that happens. When they find out that we've left the church, then they reach out to us and say, hey, here's my feelings. We just say, we love you. We'll be friends. You want to go out to dinner? And it's not like, ooh, how can we... No, not at all. You want to go to church? Great, go to church.
So somebody comes to you and says this, that I'm an LGBT, or I'm gay or whatever, and my mom said she'd rather I dead. What do you say to them?
Oh my gosh,
you're not broken. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And that's probably the most important thing we tell them is you're not alone. You're not alone because you have a friend. At least you got two friends here. And we won't abandon you no matter what. Go back to church, great. Leave the church, great. Doesn't matter. You're not alone. That's it.
And God did not say that you were less than.
And he doesn't say that now.
But they feel that.
But that's how they feel because when you say the very essence, right? And it's been beautiful to walk this journey to feel othered in a way because it gives us an opportunity to understand, even in the slightest, someone who feels marginalized, someone who feels dismissed. Because when you say to us, we love you, but we know that these people also believe at the same time we've been deceived. True, unjudgmental love, for me at least, was when I was active in the church, I would have said, yeah, I don't judge. That's not my job. And I would believe that. But when you're part of a system that says, well, we love them, but God said that they're wrong And science says 4% of the population, scientifically proven, is born into this category, right? And you go through our situation, you realize, like, I just am in no position to put a God stamp on anything. And I don't think it's healthy. And what I see is, I see people who are losing kids. There's a problem, right? Because the numbers, there's a TED Talk about Mormon children killing themselves. So this isn't just like, oh, we think they're hurting. It is absolutely that they do not feel acceptable before God and before their family. So yes, I would say that probably members of the church everywhere would say, we love them. Absolutely. They love us too. We're just not quite whole in their minds. So to say to someone who's gay, like, we love you, but be in an organization that says, but God said you're choosing to live in sin, that is incomplete. It's dismissive. It's not whole. You know, I couldn't do that when I was aligning myself with an organization that said, God said this, you know. And
do you believe that he has said things that are absolute?
I believe that the most important thing that God is love.
It's one of his most important attributes, that's for sure.
And so I'm not really so concerned moving forward in my life about othering anybody, Muslim, Jew, anybody, because they would also say that God has absolutely spoken and this is what he said, and it will completely contradict someone else. So I believe that humanity does a fantastic job within their own culture and their own language of constructing what they believe God has said. In Mormonism, God has said gay people weren't born right. And I think it's very damaging. Take any religion, and God has absolutely said something to them. So I guess I would say I am not concerned about believing that we are appropriately speaking for God. Because I also have done a lot of study about about the teachings of all the prophets, right? And a lot of the things that the prophets throughout Mormon history have said have now been covered up, set aside. We don't talk about it, right? And they were speaking in absolutes back then. And I think that if I had known, when I found out some of the teaching, I'm like, that is so horrible. It's awful. It's terrible. It's hidden. It's buried. We don't want to talk about it anymore. And we would condemn it if it's brought up, right? But back then, God was speaking to them. It was absolutely doctrine. And so for me, I'm just not concerned about interpreting God's absolute truths. I'm just concerned about loving in non-judgment and seeing people as valid because they were born, because we're all in this together, we're all in this together. And I don't know that
for what purpose though? You say we're all in this together, all in what? For what purpose?
You and I are right here right now.
I know. But what is the purpose of this human existence?
That's something that you have to kind of reconfigure when you leave Mormonism.
I think we're still trying to figure that out in a very real way, right? Because those existential questions were all answered through the LDS Church in my life. And now that's not the moral authority in my life. So, not that it's a bad place, I'm not saying that, but it's just not what I'm not going to let the LDS Church dictate how I view the world. And so I have to, I went from knowing everything to knowing not very much. And I'm learning to be comfortable with that. I don't know. I don't know present well as if God exists. I want him to exist. I hope he exists. I hope there's an afterlife. I hope we can be together as a family. I really do. But I don't know that, and I don't believe it's possible for any of us to absolutely know it. We can absolutely feel it, and we can feel very comfortable and confident in that. But I don't think it's possible for us.
But I mean, for us to be involved in this experience down here, without having a way of knowing, seems like kind of a.
Well, there is a way of knowing, but I don't think feelings are. I think if you look at human history and the human experience, feelings is not a reliable or predictable way to know. I mean, feelings are manipulated, and the interpretation is vague and very subjective. I mean, it's just not. I'm not saying the scientific method is the only. If it doesn't meet scientific standards, it can't be proven. I'm not saying that, but to say that feelings trump everything else, I think, is misguided. And that's what the church does. It relies on. It wants us to rely on our feelings, and I think that's not the most reliable way to come to truth.
And I guess, Leah, I hear you talking about you're not counseling anybody to leave the church or anything like that, or you're not preaching or teaching. But in essence, it seems to me like you kind of are. If somebody comes to you and says, I'm gay, and the church doesn't have any place for me, and you say, well, yeah, but this and this and this and this, and you don't, they said this, and read this book, and
that's not what I'm doing.
But what are you saying? Just that we love you?
Yes. Totally.
But I mean,
now, there's a lot of support groups where people, we'll share quotes, we share those kinds of things that everybody shares.
But if they come and they say, but the prophet said that this, or that I read this, or, the church right now says that, doesn't support gay marriage, let's just say, what am I supposed to do? Then what's your response? Well, that's just what those brethren, that's their opinion.
Well,
that's what,
I would say, in fairness, people will post on the page like this is my story, or this is what I'm struggling with, or this is my pain. I would love it if people came right to me and were like, what should I do? I wouldn't say that that's the nature of the group.
And what would you say?
It's a community. I'm the admin, so I make sure that we're keeping it safe, right? But I am just one of the members in the group. I'm not like the mothership, there are people who, it's not like Leah's group. If you went to the group, people might not even know that I'm the admin. I could name a number of other groups. It's like, who's the admin in this group? Who's the admin in that group?
There's a lot of pain. There's sometimes anger.
I don't doubt that.
And so somebody might get on and say, I was in sacrament meeting, fast and testimony today, and somebody got up and said this. And then somebody will reply and say,
oh, that must be hard.
Someone will say that must be hard. Somebody else might say, that's so wrong. Yes, people are sharing their feelings, and it's not censored, and it's not, but that's what it is. That's the nature of it. But it's not Leah or me answering all the questions. It's not a Dear Abby. It's a support community, and sometimes it's pretty, and sometimes it's not pretty.
But the fact that you're an admin in there,
yeah,
and you said it was dead until you picked it up.
Totally, because we went to this retreat in Houston, and after that we thought, statistically, like we just learned about statistics, and there's a really helpful report that was put out that I think that you might be interested in, and I meant to link it in there, but I can send it to you. It's called the Mormon Faith Crisis Report. What's it called?
Yeah, the Mormon Faith Crisis, something else like that.
Anyway, it just gives you the stats, just all the stats, and I think one of the Quorum of the 12 was involved.
Well, we just realized that we were here in Houston and felt so loved and so supported. We felt not alone. We felt not crazy. And now we're going back to Ohio, and we knew like a couple of people in the area
who had left
the church, who were already friends of us, but we felt alone, right? And we thought, well, there are probably other people. There absolutely are people,
statistically speaking,
in the Central Ohio area who are also feeling alone, who need a community, who've lost their community. And that's the impetus.
Okay.
And I guess it feels interesting to because I get the sense, and I said, you've become a threat. And I guess my question to you would be, first of all, why, I guess, and I would really love to hear some of your thoughts or responses to these. I think these people are just so wanting to be heard, their words. And I guess when you do, maybe it will help you understand these groups more. But, I told, hey, I've actually got a lot on my plate, I run a business, I have 4 children, my husband's a busy physician, we travel a lot, I don't need one more thing to do, right? I just saw a need, and my core values urge me to fulfill that need. So that's what I did. And it feels fear-based for the church, the stake presidency, the bishop, to say you pose a threat because you're creating a space that validates people who have different views. So if I'm a threat, I guess if the conversation is that we are a threat by creating a safe space, how can then there ever be a conversation about you creating a space or the church being? Because if I'm a threat by doing that, and if that's the conversation we're having, then how on earth can we get from here to here? How could you then be in that space and provide that validation?
I think there's always room for questioning. Unfortunately, there's not always answers to those questions. But there's always room for questioning. There's always room for differences of opinion on things that are, you can have different opinion on. But there are certain core values that, you think about the Temple Recommend questions. Do you sustain President Nelson as a prophet? Do you sustain the other general authorities as prophets, or the other 12 apostles? And when your opinion of that is different, then it's almost like it's a different religion. And if you're encouraging people along that path and validating their beliefs in those things by saying, I know what the prophet said, I know what President Oak said, but here's why I don't think he's a prophet.
Well, you're making a lot of assumptions about what we say.
You're right. I don't know. I mean, I know it's a closed group, but
it's very feelings based, and I think that when you read that, you'll understand that.
I will, and I'll read through that.
But again, and I think one of the comments I was reading through furiously because I posted this late last night, but I think that one of the things is one of the people said I'm not gonna believe this whether there's a support group or not. I'm just going to feel like I have a community if there's a support group, right? We're not spending our time regurgitating. There is so much information out there. It would be such a chore for me to regurgitate that. I'm not interested in that. If people come to me, and some people have actually, within my team, because I have a very Mormon team in my business, and I sent a letter, which I'd be happy to share with you, to my business partners. And I said, very high level, I want to be honest with you and tell you I absolutely love you. We're stepping away from the church. We've learned some new things, and we don't, whatever. It was very, very high level. But, because of that, now I have people, right, coming to me. I won't even talk about the issues with them because you know what? I don't have the time, the energy, the desire. I'll say, great. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Have you told your family? How did that go? Even if people in our family come to us, we won't talk about the issues. We're not willing to do it because it's an emotional minefield, right? So I guess let me reassure you that it's not a regurgitation of information.
Well, I don't suggest that it is a regurgitation because it's obviously something that you've studied and felt and believe. Regurgitation just implies passing on.
Most of the people who find us have come to conclusions on their own, is what I'm saying. And now they need to feel, and they have either already lost their tribe or they're going through that experience, and they just want to feel not alone. So they don't come to us asking us.
So in essence, it's a different church.
We're not a church.
It's not a church.
I know. I don't know what other term to use, but it's a group.
It's a support group.
It's a support group.
It's a support group.
And I think it would be Christ-like for you, or who have people who say, listen, I want out of this, to say, okay, there's a support group for this. There are people who've decided to leave, who have formed a community. Here's Leah and Cody. I know that you may not believe that, but I think that would be the most Christ-like, loving thing to do, because the reality is, like Leah said, so many of them, they don't want the church. They don't want you to come knock on their door. And it's not because they don't like you. It's just at this point they're not coming back. You know what I mean? They just want to be loved. They want community and support, and that's the only need we're trying to fill.
Well, and hopefully we can get to that point to where we can do that. I mean, there's a lot.
We're happy to be helped.
There's a lot of things in the past that cause us to react some of the ways that you've talked about, and to mention that, and I hope that we can all learn to love everybody regardless of their beliefs, regardless of their actions or whatever. That's ultimately what we're commanded to do, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We know that.
And, it's something that I need to obviously take very seriously, and I hope you understand that I'm a little bit concerned about that and the potential impact of others, and I need to evaluate that.
Okay.
And see where that goes.
Well, I would just so encourage you. I think that, you said multiple times, what can I do? And I would just really plead with you to read their words.
I will.
And to take that into to take it into consideration, because like I said, I feel like what I so wish could happen when this happens is like we're on the same team. Like, I really feel like you are just a really good man, like following and living the most Christ-like way you know how. And I know it sounds crazy to you, but we are really trying to do the exact same thing.
And I believe it. Believe me, I believe it.
And we don't esteem ourselves any better than you or any other member of the church. I don't look at the people in church as misguided, and I don't do that, right? I have, again...
Not our job.
I love the church, and I'm not the absolute judge of truth, right? I will continue to support and love all my friends and family in the church the best I can. I want the church to be healthy. I do. I want the church to come clean, not even so that I'll come back, but just so that my nieces and nephews, if they stumble upon this, there's a softer landing for them. There's a place for them. Their parents don't cast them out. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand.
If I have a niece or nephew who's gay, it's, with all due respect, it's toxic to be gay in the church. It's toxic. And that's why there is a real problem with them taking their lives, because it's toxic. The church doesn't want us, it is what it is. But I want the church to be healthier for those people. Not because I want to come back.
As do I. And I think the brethren do too.
And so, we're just, like Leah said, we're just trying to do the best we can. And
we want to lift where we stand.
We don't want to ruffle feathers. I don't want people in the ward to feel threatened by us. I can't control that. We've never approached anybody in the ward in any way to try and...
And we've told our children the same, like, hey, we're gonna be sharing some new things. We counseled with many psychologists before we talked to our kids. We were physically heartbroken because we had raised our kids very Orthodox, and it was everything to them. And knowing, we have to be honest. Like, we have to be honest in an age-appropriate, safe way for them. And in that process, and being coached by people who their entire profession is helping people navigate the Mormon faith crisis, we told our children, you have to be safe to your friends. You can never, don't talk about this, don't talk about this. Support them in their beliefs, love them. We watched, our older daughter lose her friends. We listened to her have a conversation with one of the moms of her friends saying, I promise I'm safe to your child. Like, I'm not going to say anything about what we've learned. It's so heartbreaking. But in that, we also said to our own children, if you want to stay in the church, you know who are going to be your number one supporters? Mom and Dad. We will be there. And we never made it wasn't, we're not going to church no, it was, we're learning some new things we didn't know before. And we feel like because we want to be honest people, these are some of the things that we're going to have to share with you. And it's going to be really, really hard. It's really going to hurt you. And it felt so wrong to be able to have to be the one to sit there and tell my children those things. And my heart breaks for, gosh, thank goodness we're together. There's divorces happening. There's just really difficult stuff. And but what I was getting to is we told our own children, right? If that tells you where our hearts are, we were like, if you want to get married in the temple, we'll be outside of the temple. If you want to go to BYU, you can go to BYU. If Avery's going to girls' camp this year, we want her to be there. They would set us up with these high-ranking apologists at BYU. We would sit with them over Zoom. We would have these long conversations because the truth is, we want the church to be true. That's what I tell him. He's just in agony, And I'm like, I want the church to be true. Like, this is not the easy path. This is the hard path. And most of the people I talk to say, I want it to be true. Like, I wish it were true. I want that. It was so much. There's so much pain to go through this. So it's not like we're trying to pick a fight or it's like, yeah, Brinley's come to church recently because she has friends going on missions or coming home from missions. We're like, yeah, do you want us to come with you, sit with you? Cody, you came to church recently?
Yeah, I came to Mitchell's.
Farewell, we want to do it the best way we know how. And that's all we're trying to do.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be talking.
Yeah, we really appreciate you visiting with us. It means a lot.
Okay. All right. Thank you.